بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا، وزدنا من فضلك علما نافعا وعملا صالحا متقبلا، وزدنا من فضلك حكمة وتعليما خالصا لوجهك موفقا. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين. We'll start with some of the markers of an ism. So there are three parts of speech. Again, there's an ism, or what we'll approximately call a noun, a fi'l, or a verb, and a harf, or a particle. And we spoke last time about this concept of alama, which I guess I've decided to translate as marker. And it basically means a sufficient condition. So just like, for example, if someone has a US passport, that makes them a US citizen. So that's a sufficient marker that they're a US citizen. But they could be a US citizen and just not have a passport. So when we say that something is a sufficient condition, it means that it's in and of itself, it's enough proof of the claim, but it's not necessary. So now we're going to talk about the markers or sufficient conditions, sufficient criteria for something being an ism, meaning that if these things exist, then you know that the word is an ism. But if they don't exist, then that doesn't necessarily mean the word is not an ism. So let's take a look at these. So what are some of these markers that show that a word is an ism? The first of them is tanween. So tanween only occurs on asma. So if you see a word that has tanween, for example, kitabun, zaydun, what have you, then you know automatically that it is an ism, not a harf or a fi'l. And that this is true almost all the time, but not all of the time. So back in university, there was a section in a textbook that two instructors had written together. And the section was titled, Why We Must Lie to You. So basically, everything that you learn as a beginning student is a lie. And I mean, I'm being melodramatic. The idea is that everything you learn as a beginning student is a generalization. And so these statements that we're learning are also generalizations. For example, tanween, what you'll learn later when you study Ibn Aqil, inshallah, is that there are 10 types of tanween, and 4 of them indicate that something is an ism, and the other 6 are actually not that common. So in any case, in general, tanween is a marker of a word being an ism. Second is the ta marbuta. If you see the ta marbuta as opposed to the ha at the end of a word, then you know that that word is an ism. Another one is al, the definite article al. Al only enters upon asma, and so therefore when you see al at the start of a word, you know that it's an ism. Another one that's a little bit tricky to deal with is jar. Jar is also an indication that something is an ism, because if we just take a general overview, what are the types of inflection that apply to asma? The types of inflection that apply to asma, as we'll cover a bit later, are rafa, nasb, and jar. So the jar state only ever applies to nouns. It doesn't apply to verbs. Now, how would you know something is in the jar state? Well, generally it means that it ends in a kasra if it is a singular noun, and there are many details. And so knowing that something is in a jar state is sometimes not that easy. Probably easier to determine, to know that something is in a jar state, is to see if a harf jar, if a particle that causes something to be in a state of jar is attached to it. Like what? Like, for example, if you see min, ila, an, ala, fi, the ba, etc., attached to a word, then that generally indicates that it is an ism. So that's also one of the indications that something is an ism. Another indication or marker that something is an ism is nida, is the ability to call or invoke that thing. So if you can call something or if you can invoke it, then it's an ism. Another of the signs, which is a little bit tricky as well, another marker of something being an ism is that it be the subject of a sentence. And what do we mean by the subject of a sentence? The subject of a sentence is basically the subject of a verb, if it's a verbal sentence, or it's the mubtada of a nounal sentence. And if you don't know what those are, that's okay. We'll get to them a bit later. So these are all markers of something being an ism. One way of dividing asma is by saying that they are either definite or indefinite. So definite meaning that it refers to one particular thing or one particular person or one particular object or concept. So that's what it means when we say it's definite. Indefinite means that it applies to many. Like, for example, shajaratun is a tree, and so therefore that applies to any possible tree. Whereas ash-shajaratu means the tree, and so therefore it only refers to one of them. So we could say nouns are definite or indefinite. And so the words for these concepts in Arabic are ma'rifa for definite or nakira for indefinite. When you add al to the beginning of an indefinite word, that indefinite word becomes definite. Though some words are definite even without the al. Like what? What's an example of a word that is definite even without al? A person's name, exactly. So proper names are also definite, and there are a number of definite nouns that we will be discussing later on. So there's a misconception. Some people will claim that definite nouns do not take tanween, only indefinite nouns take tanween. That's false. Rather, the case is that if something was indefinite to begin with and took tanween, and now it has alif lam on it, then it no longer takes tanween. Okay, so again, if something was indefinite and took tanween, and now it became definite through alif lam being added to it, it no longer takes tanween. So for example, you'd say shajaratun, meaning a tree, or ash-shajaratu, the tree. On the other hand, if it was already definite, such as a person's name, like Zaydun or Muhammadun, then it takes tanween. So these are some of the markers of something being an ism. Tanween, ta marbuta, alif lam, jar, which can be tricky, nida, or invocation or calling, and being the subject of a sentence. So what are some of the markers of something being a verb? First of all, ta ta'nith sakina, the feminizing ta that is unvoweled at the end of a word is one of the signs of something being a past tense verb. Like what? Like, for example, if we were to say, when we look at this verb, qalat, you see this ta ta'nith at the end. This is called ta ta'nith, or the feminine ta, or the feminizing ta. And it has a sukoon on it. It's an indication that that ta is unvoweled. So that at the end of a word is a general indication or is a marker that the word is a past tense verb. And one of the markers of something being a present tense verb is its ability to accept the seen or seen aw sawfa, both of which indicate that something will happen in the future. A marker that something is an imperative verb is generally a marker through its meaning, the indication that one gets from understanding the word that it is ordering that something occur. So those are some of the markers of things being asma or nouns and af'al, whether past, present, or imperative verbs. As for a better way is basically to determine what they mean and to determine it from that basis. So an ism, once again, is a word that has a meaning in and of itself and is not associated with time. A fi'l is a word that has a meaning in and of itself and is associated with time, and a harf is anything else. These are good approximations. Now, one of the things you want to do is whenever you learn a new word, whenever you learn a new ism, ensure that you also learn with it its plural. because there are basically three types of plurals that occur with asma. The three types of plurals for asma are: one, the sound masculine plural, and that is with the addition of un or een at the end. Two, the sound feminine plural, and that is with the addition of at the end. And the broken plural, and that has no particular form. There are three types of plurals for any ism. They are the sound masculine, the sound feminine, and the broken plural. Can someone tell me why the sound masculine is called sound masculine and why the sound feminine is called sound feminine? Why is it called Jam'a Mudhakkar Salim and Jam'a Mu'annath Salim? Does anyone know? Okay, so the difference between Salim and Mulhaq it's a good one, but it's not answering the question. So what does it mean that something is Salim or is sound? It means that it's not broken. It has the original word within it. So if we look at this word Muslim and we look at the plural of it, the plural of the word Muslim is Muslimun or Muslimin. And so we see that the word Muslim exists within the word Muslimun and Muslimin. So the Muslimun or Muslimin is the sound masculine plural of the word Muslim. The sound feminine plural of Muslim is Muslimat. So again, the word Muslim occurs within it. If we look at the broken plural, what we find is that the original word does not exist in the plural form. So that's why it's broken. So if we were to look at a word like shajara, meaning tree, one of the plurals would be ashjar. And so as you see, the word shajara does not exist in its intact form within the plural ashjar. So the idea here is that whenever you learn a new ism, you should learn its plural, its broken plural along with it, because the majority of plurals are actually broken plurals. And there are some words that have both sound and broken plurals. Can someone give me an example of a word that has both a sound and a broken plural? Ma'duda is not actually a plural. Okay, so this is a good point. So ayyam and ma'duda. So the general rule in Arabic is the following. The general rule is that if you have a non-intelligent, a non-sentient thing that you are speaking about as a plural, then you describe it in the singular feminine. So, for example, if I were to say, هذا كتاب قيم, this is a valuable book. هذا كتاب قيم. So that's singular. This, هذا كتاب, book, قيم, valuable. هذا كتاب قيم. If I wanted to speak about this in plural, how would I convert this sentence into a plural form? Well, anything that's non-sentient, that is not intelligent, if you're not talking about humans or jinn or what have you, when you pluralize it, you generally refer to it in the singular feminine. So what we would say here, if we wanted to say this in plural, is هذه كتب قيمة. So a couple things here. One is the practice of this rule that non-sentient plural things are indicated by a singular feminine, or one refers to them as if they are singular feminine. So هذه and قيمة. That's what's happening with ma'duda. As for ma'dudat, that is a plural. So you can pluralize non-sentient things. And when you do, and you use a feminine plural, then it is actually what is called a jama' qillah. It means just a few days. Okay, so sorry for diving off on the deep end, but that was a good question. So a more typical example of a plural, of a broken and sound plural, would be kafirun or kuffar. Or like, for example, what is the plural of the word nabi? Nabiyin or nabiyun, and anbiya. Many words have multiple plurals, whether sound masculine or sound feminine, plus the jama' taksir. You must learn the broken plural as you learn each word. So now let's talk about some of the attributes related to nouns and how these affect its i'rab. So we already said that the inflected state of an ism is one of three cases. So the inflected state of an ism, every ism is in one of these three states: rafa, nasb, or jar. So these three states are different inflected states of an ism. And each of these states has a sign. We could say approximately, as a first stake in the ground, that the sign of rafa is a dhamma. That's a lie, but I have to lie to you. It's a first class. So the sign of rafa is a dhamma. We'll learn the details later. The sign of nasb is a fatha, and the sign of jar is a kasra. So that's a first stab in the ground. Now, what we have to learn, first of all, is what the signs are, and then what causes the ism to begin with to be in the state of rafa, or nasb, or jar. We'll get there. Is it correct to say that these are the original signs? Yes, those are the original signs. Those are the default signs. I prefer the word default over original. So what would affect the signs of the rafa or nasb or jar for an ism? Well, one of them is the number. Okay, so every ism is affected by something called the adad, or number. So whether something is singular, dual, or plural affects how the sign of rafa is manifested, or how the sign of nasb is manifested, or how the sign of jar is manifested. So whether it is singular, a broken plural, a special kind of broken plural called muntaha al-jumu'ah, which we'll cover later, sound masculine plural or sound feminine plural, all of those are factors in what the sign of rafa is. And as you know, in Arabic, dual is different than plural. So in Arabic, we have this concept of something being singular, of being dual, meaning two, and of being plural, which is three or more. Another thing that affects the sign of rafa or nasb or jar is the gender of the particular. And yet another aspect of an ism is its definiteness, whether it is ma'rifa, meaning definite, or nakira, meaning indefinite. So all of these are factors that affect the i'rab. So let's go through just a simple example of this. So if I were to say the easiest example of what puts something into a rafa state, and there are many others, we'll do three right now off the top. One of them is that if an ism is the subject of a verb, then it's marfu'. If an ism is a mubtada or a khabar, then those are also marfu'. So there are two types of sentences, as you know, in Arabic. There are nounal sentences and verbal sentences. So a nounal sentence consists of two parts, and they are the mubtada, which is the subject, and the khabar, which is the predicate. Okay? And so in such a sentence, both the mubtada and the khabar are marfu', are in a state of rafa. So if we were to say a very simple nounal sentence, we would say Zaydun qa'imun. And so you notice that Zayd is marfu' and it has a dhamma at the end because it's the mubtada. And qa'im is marfu' because it's the khabar and it has a dhamma at the end. And we'll do just one more example, which is a verbal sentence that consists of a verb and a subject. So we say Ja'a Zaydun, and as you see, Zaydun is marfu' because it's the subject, and the sign of it being marfu' is that it takes a dhamma at the end. We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والله تعالى أعلم وأحكم وهو حسبنا ونعم الوكيل. السلام عليكم.